Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air. You'll see the incredible new video of that Delta flight crashing in Toronto. Also tonight, this major new winter storm set to hit and brutal, record-breaking cold. Outside Philadelphia, the massive warehouse fire closing schools, neighborhoods sheltering in place tonight. And news coming in now of a break-in at Nicole Kidman's home. First tonight, chilling new images of the Delta flight 4819 bursting into flames as it hits the runway at Toronto Pearson Airport. The plane on fire and rolling over. Inside the cabin, 80 passengers and crew upside down, still buckled in their seats. 4 crew members quickly getting everyone out. 21 passengers hurt, some still in the hospital tonight. And what we're now learning about this crash, what might have led to it. Also tonight, the new winter storm sweeping across the U.S. 25 states now under alerts tonight for snow and ice, from Montana down to Texas, all the way to the East Coast. Then brutal cold across most of the country. It felt like 21 below in Chicago. It'll feel like 1 degree in Dallas. Ginger Z is here. Also, the images coming in tonight outside Philadelphia, the massive fire forcing entire neighborhoods to shelter in place. Schools and businesses have been closed, and why authorities are so concerned. Tonight, President Trump defending the mass firing of thousands of federal workers, what he said just before we came on. The president was also asked about layoffs at the National Nuclear Security Administration, federal employees who help maintain America's nuclear arsenal. Those workers then suddenly hired back. The president pressed to explain what's happening. Tonight, for the first time in nearly 3 years, U.S. and Russian officials meeting face-to-face about the war in Ukraine. Ukraine not in the meeting. And late today, President Trump saying of Ukraine, you should have never started it. You could have made a deal, after the world witnessed Russia invading Ukraine. Tonight, the news coming in from the Vatican, initially hospitalized with bronchitis. What they're now saying about the Pope's condition, infections in both lungs. James Longman standing by outside the Vatican. The news coming in late today, authorities investigating in Los Angeles a break-in at the home of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, smashing through a glass door, ransacking the home. And America Strong tonight, the most decorated dog in U.S. history, has died. 16 years old, what he did and what they're now doing in his name.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. We begin tonight here with several breaking stories. We are tracking this new major winter storm set to hit and the brutal, record-breaking cold coming with it. But we do begin with these harrowing new images tonight of that Delta jet crash at Toronto's Pearson Airport. Investigators are now reviewing this new video of Delta Flight 4819 making a hard landing on the right landing gear right there, erupting in flames and then thick black smoke. The plane then beginning to roll, those 80 passengers and crew inside. Those passengers hanging upside down by their seatbelts. The heroic flight crew helping them to get off that plane. All 80 people on board survived, at least 21 injured, 2 remaining hospitalized tonight. But with the careful guidance from that 4-member flight crew, this was a miracle that everyone survived. Tonight here, what this new video reveals about those final moments before the crash, what investigators will now be studying. ABC's Gio Benitez covers aviation. He leads us off from Toronto tonight.
Tonight, this stunning new video showing the moment that Delta Airlines flight crash landed in Toronto. Investigators now reviewing the images. Its landing gear appearing to collapse. The right wing striking the ground, sparking flames. The plane flipping onto its back. A cloud of black smoke rising into the air.
We hit the runway extremely hard and we kind of popped up and it felt like we were leaning to the left. There was a giant firewall down the side. I could actually feel the heat through the glass. And then we were going sideways. I'm not even sure how many times we tumbled, but we ended upside down. I was hanging there in my seatbelt upside down.
The footage obtained by TMZ showing the Delta regional flight from Minneapolis touching down yesterday afternoon. Passenger John Nelson describing the harrowing moments inside, suspended by his seatbelt. At this point now, you're literally hanging upside down in this plane.
I didn't want to hit my head. I wanted to make sure, I could stay safe as much as I could and just hold on and hope that we made it through that.
Everything, drop it!
Flight attendants
Come on.
Seen standing on the ceiling of the plane, helping passengers scrambling to escape. Nelson shooting this video moments after the crash.
We're in Toronto. We just landed. Our plane crashed. It's upside down. Fire department's on site.
At least 21 people injured, including a child. Patients treated for back sprains, head injuries, headaches, and nausea. But miraculously, all 80 passengers and crew were alive. For everyone to have survived this, what does that mean to you?
I think I'm still processing it. It's when you see the videos and you live through it, like nobody should have to go through that. It's crazy.
At the time of landing, winds gusting up to 40 miles per hour. The cause of the crash, though, still under investigation. The plane's charred fuselage now sitting frozen on the runway for examination. And tonight, that flight crew and those first responders who escorted everyone to safety hailed as heroes.
Every time you board a flight, you are greeted by flight attendants and by flight crew. We saw the most important role that they play in action yesterday. The crew of Delta Flight 4819 heroically led passengers to safety. I thank each and every one of these heroes.
And David, tonight, so many focusing on what those passengers did right, wearing those seatbelts, listening to the flight attendants, getting out of that plane fast and leaving that luggage behind, all of it likely saving lives. David?
All right, Gio Benitez leading us off here tonight. Gio, thank you. And as Gio pointed out there, investigators will be looking very closely at this new video that's emerged of the plane just moments before it crashed. ABC News consultant, retired Colonel and pilot Steve Ganyard has studied the video. And Steve, thanks for being here again tonight. We see in this video the Delta jet approaching the runway. The approach appears somewhat normal until those final moments. What do you see and what do you make of the landing gear?
Yeah, David, in this extraordinary video, in the last 50 feet or so, it looks like they're doing a great job. It looks like a very normal approach. The airplane is stable. They're not fighting it, even though the winds are high. So it looks like it's going to be a great landing. We watch it all the way till it gets to about 10 or 20 feet above the ground. It's still a very normal landing. Then something happened in those last 10 or 20 feet where a big rate of descent developed for some reason. Could have been a couple of factors. Could have been pilot error. Maybe the crew didn't flare the airplane, pull back on the stick and cushion the landing. It could have been wind shear. Or maybe they just touched down hard and there was some sort of a mechanical failure or a defect in the landing gear. But at that point, it's that 20 feet above the runway where this mishap began to occur.
And Steve, I know you also studied the plane once it crashes into the runway and actually rolls. What stood out to you there?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting there, David, as it crashed, we saw that the right main landing gear gives way. You see the snow getting kicked up. It leans on the right wing. It punctures the fuel tank, and it begins to burn. And as it begins to burn, it skids to the right. At that point, the left wing is getting enough air over it that it flips the airplane up onto its back. But as you and I have talked about, the good thing here is that the wings held most of the fuel. And as those wings got ripped off, that fireball stayed behind the cabin. So two parts of the miracle here. One is that the cabin remained intact, didn't break up. And the second was that the fireball did not get burned or was not able to burn the cabin.
Yeah, that was certainly part of this miracle. And so bottom line here tonight, Steve, we know these pilots might have been dealing with crosswinds, which can be very challenging, but pilots do encounter these wind gusts. And in addition to the pilots in those final moments, the landing gear, two significant questions tonight.
Yeah, David, I think the key here is that what happened in those last 20 seconds. This certainly was varsity weather, but the crew, frankly, should have been able to handle it. So what happened in that last 20 seconds? Why did that rate of descent occur? And why did the airplane hit the runway so hard will be what the investigators really are going to look at first.
Colonel Steve Ganyard back with us here tonight. Steve, thank you. We turn next tonight to this new winter storm and the brutal cold. 100 million Americans across 25 states now on alert tonight. This new storm, snow and ice from Montana down to Texas, all the way to the east to the mid-Atlantic. And the wind chills, it felt like 21 below in Chicago. It'll feel like 1 degree in Dallas. Ice-covered roads in Oklahoma City, a semi-truck sideways on Interstate 40. Whiteout conditions in Oswego County, New York. Lake-effect snow right through tomorrow morning. Ginger Z timing it out in a moment, but first ABC's Faith Abube with the images as this barrels across the country tonight.
Tonight, icy wrecks all over the Heartland as a massive winter storm slams the country. In Oklahoma City this morning, freezing rain turned roads to ice rinks. Watch as this Lowe's truck spins all the way around, fishtailing before regaining traction. This on-ramp just too icy for that truck to get up. A big rig blocking traffic on Interstate 40.
You can see the backup behind him. I mean, that has got I-40 down to one lane, it looks like.
This dash cam video showing an Oklahoma Turnpike Authority plow truck getting sideswiped into the guardrail by an 18-wheeler. Parts of Kansas could get more than a foot of snow. The same system dumping up to 2 feet in the Rockies. This avalanche spotted by drivers along I-70 in Frisco, Colorado Monday. And it's all fueled by the coldest air of the season. Chicago this morning felt like 21 below zero. And the death toll rising in Kentucky to at least 14. The hard-hit region now bracing for up to 6 inches of snow. And here in Wichita, officials are urging drivers to stay off the roads because of blowing snow. Up to 8 inches in total expected. And David, it is brutally cold. By morning, we're expecting the wind chills to feel like 20 degrees below zero. David.
All right, Faith, we sure do appreciate it tonight. Thank you. Let's get right to our chief meteorologist, Ginger Z, tracking it all again tonight. Hi, Ginger.
David, winter storm warnings up from Oklahoma City to Virginia Beach, Virginia. Let's go ahead and dive into the timing. We've seen 4 to 5 inches in the Ozarks already, northeastern Oklahoma near Tulsa to Rogers, Arkansas, but it's going to move across I-40 tonight. Nashville gets it through the early morning hours. Going to be a rough commute there, and then it will blast east through the afternoon, and that's where Norfolk or Virginia Beach, just north and east of Raleigh, going to get some of the problems. Messy, too, with the sleet and freezing rain south of there along I-95. Wanted to show you the little bursts of snow that come through Thursday, but a majority of it is gone on Thursday. And then the cold, record cold from Baton Rouge up to Omaha, David.
All right, Ginger Z back with us here tonight. We'll see you first thing in the morning on GMA. Ginger, thank you. We turn now to President Trump late today, defending the mass firings of thousands of federal workers. What he said about the effort today. He was also pressed about the hundreds of workers from the National Nuclear Security Administration that monitors the country's nuclear stockpile. The administration scrambling to rehire some of those workers who were fired. The president was pressed to explain what's happening. ABC senior political correspondent Rachel Scott in West Palm Beach, Florida tonight.
Tonight, President Trump defending the speed and scope of the dramatic layoffs sweeping through the federal government. Amid the push to purge the workforce, mistakes being made. Hundreds of workers at the National Nuclear Security Administration were fired. Sources say officials unaware the agency is responsible for managing the nation's nuclear stockpile, then scrambling to hire those workers back.
Some of these workers focus on nuclear weapon security, were immediately rehired. Do you have any concerns about how these terminations have
No, not at all. I think we have to just do what we have to do. In some cases, they'll fire people and then they'll put some people back, not all of them, because a lot of people were let go. Don't forget, I got elected on the basis of making our government stronger and smaller.
Thousands of workers fired at the Department of Health and Human Services, where today the new secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., addressed those who remain. His team telling them selfies are welcome. Kennedy declaring HHS will now study possible causes of chronic diseases.
Some of the possible factors we will investigate were formerly taboo or insufficiently scrutinized. A childhood vaccine schedule, electromagnetic radiation, glyphosate, other pesticides, ultra-processed foods, artificial food additives, SSRI and other psychiatric drugs, PFAs, PFOAs, microplastics. Nothing is going to be off limits.
But tonight, the head of the FDA's food division under Kennedy is stepping down. Jim Jones saying the firings at the agency demonstrate the Trump administration's disdain for the very people necessary to implement the department's agenda of improving the health of Americans. And he's not the only top-level official to leave in protest. The head of the Social Security Administration resigning after Elon Musk's staff demanded access to an internal data system that includes sensitive information of millions of Americans.
And David, the administration has not said how long these firings will last or just how many people will be impacted. Every day seems to be a new agency. Sources say that tomorrow layoffs could start at the IRS, David.
ABC's Rachel Scott from Florida tonight. Rachel, thank you as always. Tonight, the high-profile meeting between the U.S. and Russia, the first in nearly 3 years. Secretary of State Marco Rubio discussing the war with Ukraine with Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Ukraine was not in the meeting. And late today, President Trump saying of Ukraine, you should never have started it. You could have made a deal, even though the world witnessed Russia invade Ukraine. Here's our chief foreign correspondent, Ian Pannell, from inside Ukraine tonight.
Tonight, in a radical break with the past, the U.S. and Russia agreeing to work together for the first time in almost 3 years. The two sides discussing how to end Russia's war in Ukraine, but doing so without any Ukrainian officials present.
We couldn't have imagined a better result after this session. Today is the first step of a long and difficult journey, but an important one.
President Trump just moments ago claiming he has the power to end this war and falsely blaming Ukraine for Russia's invasion.
And I think I have the power to end this war. And I think it's going very well. But today I heard, oh, well, we weren't invited. Well, you've been there for 3 years. You should have ended it 3 years. You should have never started it. You could have made a deal.
This is a major win for the Kremlin after being isolated from the West diplomatically and financially. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov already taking a victory lap, saying the US is finally starting to listen to Moscow. But this thaw in relations is sending a shiver down the spine of Europe and, above all, Ukraine, neither invited to this meeting. Now, European leaders are set together in Paris for a second day of an emergency summit. The French Prime Minister saying today we're witnessing an unthinkable alliance between Putin and Trump that's marginalising Europe on its own soil.
David, President Trump's claim that Ukraine is to blame for the war is just totally false. It was Russia that invaded Ukraine, and even tonight, Ukrainian cities are yet again being bombed by Russia. David?
Ian Pannell reporting from inside Ukraine tonight. Ian, thank you. There is also news tonight from the Vatican. Late word coming in on Pope Francis's health. ABC's chief international correspondent James Longman is at the Vatican. James, what have you learned?
David, a concerning development here tonight. Pope Francis is now fighting pneumonia. The 88-year-old had a CT scan which showed that he has now got an infection in both of his lungs, certainly more serious than the bronchitis he'd been earlier diagnosed with, and it all feeds into this complex clinical picture that we had been told about. Remember, he had part of a lung removed when he was a younger man. Despite all this, we are told he is in good spirits, and he thanks all those who've been sending him messages of support. David?
All right, James Longman at the Vatican again tonight for us. James, thank you. When we come back here, the news coming in tonight, a break-in at the home of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, smashing through a glass door. What authorities are now saying about what was done inside. And in Philadelphia at this hour, the massive warehouse fire forcing entire neighborhoods to shelter in place tonight. Some urged to evacuate. Schools and businesses in the area have been closed, and why authorities are so concerned about this in a moment here. Tonight outside Philadelphia, a massive warehouse fire forcing residents to shelter in place in Abington Township, Pennsylvania. North of Philadelphia, schools closed there, the fire breaking out at SPS Technologies. Voluntary evacuations tonight issued for nearly 250 homes so far. Authorities are very concerned about the air quality there. When we come back here tonight, what we've just learned about the break-in at the home of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban in a moment. To the index of other news tonight, Los Angeles police are investigating a break-in at the home of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban. Police sources telling ABC News Tonight suspects smashed through a glass door and ransacked their home on Valentine's Day. Security telling police they smashed their way into the Beverly Hills home. No word on whether anything was taken. The couple was not there at the time. No arrests have been made. When we come back here tonight, we celebrate the most decorated canine in U.S. history, what he did and why he's being remembered tonight.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by Pacific Life, creating financial security for nearly 160 years.
Finally tonight here, the most decorated canine in U.S. history, America Strong. Tonight, honoring a former Special Operations canine with the U.S. Secret Service. His name, Hurricane, a Belgian Malinois, and he's the most decorated dog in U.S. history. You may remember him from more than a decade ago, 2014, when he took down an intruder on the White House lawn while President Obama and his family were inside. For his heroic act, Hurricane was honored with multiple awards, including the Department of Homeland Security Award for Valor. In the years that followed, his handler, former Secret Service officer Marshall Merarkey from the Special Operations Division, started the nonprofit Canine Hurricanes Heroes to help pay the medical bills and retirement costs for other retired military and government service dogs like Hurricane. Tonight, that retired Secret Service officer telling us they've helped more than 150 dogs. Hurricane has passed away at the age of 16. An honor flight flew him back home to Washington, D.C. Tonight, Marshall, his handler, telling us Hurricane woke up every day with so much passion and motivation that it inspired me to do the same thing. Hurricane was part of my soul. Hurricane, America Strong. We celebrate Hurricane and all of the service dogs out there. I'm David Muir. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir America's most watched newscast.